All right, let's talk to Jelmer.
All right.
All right. Oh, shoot. I think I dropped the call by accident. There we go. All right. I don't know who put me in charge here. Hi, Jelmer. I think I got you in. Did I do it?
Hi, Shannon. Hi, Jim.
Who did it?
Hey. All right.
I almost hung up on you by accident.
The right button.
I tried not to be in charge. No one will listen to me. What would you like to talk about today?
Yes. Well, the thing I want to talk about is something I called in about 3 times before and just got to hang up within 30 seconds or so.
All right. Well, it's been fun. We'll talk to you later. Go ahead.
No, but I heard Matt say 3 weeks ago that it's not his goal to hang up on people. And it's really a genuine argument that I want to make, so I hope
okay.
I can talk about it a little bit longer than 30 seconds this time.
Sure, go for it.
Go for it.
So, well, the thing is, if you say that it's either true that God exists or it's not true that God exists, is, I think, a false dichotomy.
Okay.
And the reason is that it might be ontologically indeterminable. And I'm talking ontology here, not epistemology.
Mm-hmm.
So when something is ontologically indeterminable, the indeterminability is not because of some limitation or outside, but is an intrinsic property of the thing you're trying to determine. And a good example...
Can I stop you for a sec to make sure that I understand? I'm not a philosopher by any stretch of the imagination, so I may stop you just to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. And what I'm hearing is that it may be just definitively indeterminate because things are either true or false, right? A statement is either true or false. Are you saying that it's could be indeterminable because I could say, flubber exists or flubber doesn't exist, but since, well, no, in that instance, it doesn't exist. I'm just making it up. So yeah, no, I don't get what you mean by ontologically indeterminable.
So a very good example would be a paradox.
Okay.
A paradox, a two-sided card paradox, for instance, where on one side of the card it says that what's written on the other side is true, and then when you turn the card, it says that what's written on the other side is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how is that analogous to a God existing or not existing, though?
Yes, so true and not true would become useless in that circumstance. So I wonder, how would you exclude that the true nature of reality is paradoxical?
So I feel as though you just smuggled in true nature of reality as synonymous with God.
No. If we are talking about God, we are just speculating. If we are talking about the existence of God, we are speculating about the true nature of reality. Is it divine or is it not divine?
I feel as though that might be an assertion because I know that there's definitely people who, like I have many polytheistic friends, for example, that they don't necessarily, all of them for sure, see God as the true nature of reality because there's multiple gods, each with their own contribution. So they wouldn't see God as synonymous in a monotheistic sense with the true nature of reality. So I think it is kind of presupposing monotheism. It's also presupposing that any definition of God is a synonym for the true nature of reality, and then subsequently presupposing that God is in fact the true nature of reality, but then asserting that given all of those is the case, that it could still be paradoxical.
Well, I'm not sure if I got what you said there, but my only question is, how are you going to exclude that it's paradoxical?
Well, I don't even know what you mean by God, so it's difficult for me to make an exclusionary criteria where I'm not sure what you mean by God.
Well, let's simply say that God's existence is paradoxical.
Okay. Sure. You say God's existence is paradoxical, then you couldn't make a determination given that hypothetical. It's a paradox. So it wouldn't be true or false. But I don't know what the point is, though. Like, is this just like an intellectual exercise?
Well, the point is that the dichotomy that you are very often using in your Atheist Experience show, that it necessarily has to be mutually exclusive.
I think this is pedantry to a certain degree.
Yeah, I also think that you're kind of missing that Well, it is true that either a God exists or a God does not exist, right? You don't have to accept either of those as true. You can take the neutral position, which is the position that I take, either of those. So it's not a false dichotomy to say that, but either position would need to be proven true. So I'm still not sure how you get a false dichotomy out of that when you can take the neutral position, right?
No. If you say that it's either true or not true that God exists, and let's suppose it is paradoxical, then true and not true are just useless, and it is a third option to being true or not true.
So how do we have productive dialogues about this, though? So we're here to talk about it, right? We're here to talk about what we believe and what we don't believe. And I'm big on dialogue. So how would you, Jelmer, suggest that we go about carrying on conversations about whether or not we believe in God or think God claims are true or false, while simultaneously holding your position that they are always neither because God is potentially paradoxical? How do we have substantive conversations about beliefs while holding your position?
Well, that's a whole other discussion. The point.
This is what we do here. This is what we do here. It's not a whole other discussion. It's absolutely relevant to what we do here. So, which is why I think this might be a little bit of pedantry, right? It seems as though you're saying, hey, the way that you hold these discussions needs to incorporate this. It needs to incorporate this thing that I'm saying about the idea of God potentially also being paradoxical, which means that you can't say that God propositions are either true or false because it's not a dichotomy, because I'm saying that this is a potential third option.
True and false, not true.
I beg your pardon?
Well, both true and not true is also an option. If it's paradoxical,
okay, great,
but
sure.
you need to demonstrate that, right?
And also, I'm willing to accept everything that you said and just say, sure, Jelmer, absolutely fine. But how do I go about carrying on conversations here going forward about what people believe and why they believe it, while without utilizing the language that God claims that people have proposed to me, which is generally what people are talking about, which is why I'm pretty strict on definitions about what God is or isn't, because I'm talking about what people currently believe and what they think that I should believe. And usually that's wrapped around some sort of cognitive scaffolding that has some attributes which I either will or will not believe in. So I can see how this, in this context, is a bit of pedantry, where you're maybe calling us to go, aha, you can't even have these conversations. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, you called us to tell us this because...
Well, there's all kinds of ways that you can talk about God and atheism, but the thing that I'm calling in for is about an argument that the Atheist Experience is using over and over again for years and years.
What?
And that's the dichotomy that either God exists, or either it's true that God exists, or it's not true that God exists. And what I just heard you say, I think, was that you would agree that it might be, that you cannot exclude that it could be paradoxical.
No, I don't have any evidence to assume that it is, though. It's the same reason I can't exclude that God doesn't exist at all, right? So I don't assert like that there's no conceivable way God can exist at all, right? That's just not an assertion that I have.
But are you agreeing?
I think the reason that people get frustrated when you call in is because you seem to be really stuck on the fact that people are having conversations about whether God does or doesn't exist, and you really want people to to not have that conversation about whether God does or doesn't exist, but to instead have conversation about whether God is or isn't a paradox. And I'm still not quite there, because if God is paradoxical, to a certain degree, wouldn't he have to exist? I mean, I guess that I'm not a philosopher, but I can't quite wrap my head around that. And I also don't see why it's useful. I don't see what it gets to, other than what? Like, I don't get the point.
Well, did I hear you say that you cannot exclude that it's paradoxical? Is that correct? Did you say that?
I can't exclude that God doesn't exist either. I can't exclude that he's made of candy floss and lives in the sky above Mars And that like there's a billion things that are probably very likely untrue that I can't exclude. Some of them are even logically impossible. I can't just exclude them because they're logically impossible, because there could be a paradoxical scenario where the laws of logic just don't even matter. So that like you're asking us to try to have conversations with while considering absurdities as a possibility. And I don't see that as fruitful, beneficial, necessary, required, or beneficial, I guess. I probably already said that once. I'll say it again because it's that important. I don't know. Jim, do you have anything else to say? And then I think we have to move on. There's a bunch in the queue.
Yeah. And we address claims being made. So as soon as somebody makes a claim that God is paradoxical, we're going to ask the same question we ask everybody else who makes a claim on this show. What's your evidence? So if you think God could be paradoxical, present your evidence that he is.
Let me be clear. I didn't make a claim. I asked you how you would exclude it. You are the one to make a claim that is necessarily mutually exclusive. God's existence is necessarily mutually exclusive. And if you're not making that claim, then it is a false dichotomy what you're presenting the people with.
I'm not making that claim. I'm simply saying I don't accept either as true.
Accepting that anything is within the realm. Sorry. Accepting that anything is within the realm of possibility is like that. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I can't absolutely exclude it, and you're making that synonymous with obviously it's the case. And this is frustrating because I still to this day, like to this moment right now, and you've apparently called 4 times at this point, don't see the point to this.
Well, the point is that you are.
I am what?
Show is now 16 years old, and most conversations with any theist start out with the claim that with the dichotomy that God either exists or doesn't.
Their God, yeah, absolutely, because their God to them exists. We're having conversations with people, Jelmer, who believe that God exists and think that they have definitions of God, so that the claims that they propose to us, we believe that they are either true or false because they are making claims. We are not talking to people who are calling in going, hey, do you think it's possible at all that, God could be paradoxical? What do you guys think about that? Except for you, kind of, but you're not really calling to say, hey, to talk about the concept of whether or not God can be paradoxical. You're calling to use it as a cudgel because you want to say that we're not having productive dialogues, while also asserting that we need to do something that doesn't make dialogue productive when people are making claims. The next time somebody makes a God claim, I'm not going to go, well, that's false, except it could be paradoxical, because no, it probably isn't paradoxical because they're making a very specific claim that I can address the components of, which is what we do here.
It seems to me that you're starting almost every dialogue with a false dichotomy.
We're starting with people who are making claims, Jelmer. So it's not a false dichotomy. Their claims are either true or false.
Well, you're making a claim, and the claim
is... for the love of God, Jelmer. I can see why people hang up on you because this is not productive. I am going to graciously say goodbye to you and move on. I appreciate your conversation. You definitely made it more than 30 seconds. We have explored it. I disagree with you thinking it is something that we should adopt or your understanding of what we do here. And I hope you have a delightful rest of your evening. Thank you. And I'm hoping that you felt as though you had the opportunity to clarify so we don't have to talk about it again. Have a lovely evening. Okay, well, we let Jelmer talk for more than 30 seconds. We did it. Okay.
Yeah, we had a whole 13 minutes, and not only did he fail to convince me that his point was correct, he failed to convince me that I should care.
Right. Like, to what end?
Right.
You're starting every conversation with a false dichotomy. No, we're not, because the people that we're talking to are making a claim about what they believe.
Right. It's either true that my glasses are on. Yeah, my glasses are either on my face or they're not. Where's the paradox?
He's talking about our generalized belief structures more so than he's talking about the conversations that we have. What we do here is have conversations. He's saying basically you as an atheist is a generalized belief structure. And then that gets into the definition of atheism. And if he wants to have to talk to any atheist about that, what they believe, sure, that might be productive. If you can show that God's even a paradox, which you would also have to demonstrate. Yet, let's take another call.